But while we await the callers, Mr. James, let's speak about the initiatives. Okay, we have a caller. Let's go to the phone lines. Good afternoon. You are live on Working For You.
Good afternoon, ma'am, and good afternoon to your panelists. Carl Brown here.
Good afternoon, Mr. Brown.
And good afternoon to the listeners home and abroad. Guys from the Agriculture Department, I have a concern here. Farmers, why is it the whole farming community does not have a farmers corporation and a representative board? To me, I see this as the farmers should be representing themselves instead of the agriculture department taking the lead. I think the agriculture department should be more like a overseer or supervisory role instead of taking the lead. The farmers have been sitting too long on this. Two, although you're saying that farmers have over 300 sheep and goats, that is true. But let me tell you so, lots of those farmers are not into selling or butchering their animals. They have them as pets. Because me is goat water, sheep water, cattle eating, pork eating person. And this is what I do. Every Saturday, every weekend, I go to get my local meat. And many Saturdays I go, I can't get goat water. The cooks are telling me they can't get local meat. And some of them is telling me they don't like to cook the foreign meat.
Mm-hmm.
Sometime I go, you can't get local pork. They are telling you, we had to go up Best Boy or we had to go up Valuemart to buy the plastic. I like to call it plastic refrigerated pork because it's covered with a plastic and in a tray.
Okay.
Right? So it tells me that seeing that the agriculture department is the head of that area over the farmers, you need to find out why is it lots of these farmers are not into selling and not into butchering and having these animals as a pet or a family member. Right? The other point is the cattle area is very, very, very low. From the time we had the mad cow disease and those pits and all kind of things, the cattle population has vanished in Sinkits. It's almost like a ghost town for cattle. We need the cattle meat area largely increased. The pork and the sheep and goat need to be increased tremendously, and our fishing. They have farmers that are into the freshwater fish that need to prop up too. I didn't hear you say much about that, sir. And the poultry thing, yes, it's increasing. We need to see that increase some more. And I do eat my local eggs every morning. So we are doing something in farming, but we need to increase it tremendously. The other area I'm looking at, the flowers area in farming. I once used to see everywhere I turn, nursery this, nursery that. The nursery area has dropped. And I sure you would notice that because I could tell you there was one in College Street, you know, there was different areas right in the town area and around. The nursery area has dropped. So we need to prop up that. And the other thing, last thing before I go, we need some overseas finance. We need to get these farmers into packaging and boxing and selling overseas. Marketing is very, very low. Gone.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown, for that contribution. Okay, well, Mr. James, he raised a number of issues. He spoke about the cattle population, the fact that it has this decrease, sheep and goats being kept as pets. I don't know if you can regulate whether or not somebody decides to keep a sheep and goat as a pet, but he also spoke about flowers, growing flowers.
He spoke more than a mouthful. Um, I tried to make a note, and the last one he mentioned, marketing. You had asked me about some new initiatives.
Correct.
And so, Carl, I would want to come back to the marketing one as I speak a little more about the new initiative. So, I think he identified himself, right?
Yes.
As Carl, so yeah, I can say that. So, let me just kind of put the marketing one on hold. Flowers, yes. You remember we had the roses thing. We do have the roses up Park Range and somewhere in the rural district as well. We have some flowers at Bearford's, and a couple persons do anthuriums and ginger lilies. But yes, that is something that is not very popular in St. Kitts. Our flower arrangers and so on, I mean, they have to go up to the airport just about every day. You know, their flowers, if there's a big occasion, the flowers have to come in.
So we are importing.
We are importing.
Flowers.
We hardly producing any kind of flowers. Imports. And in flowers is a big business. There's so many things in agriculture that could make millions. And folks call in and make suggestions. Flowers is one of them. And during the course of the broadcast, I'm sure people are going to make other suggestions. To me, in the St. Kitts context, we ought not to do a little of everything. There's certain key things that we should really select and run with. That is my concept, and I believe we will advance further if we do that. Perhaps flowers might be the answer. One of the things about them, flowers, very lightweight, and therefore they are high price. You certainly don't want to go into like you don't want to export pumpkins to the US. Pumpkins heavy, US is far, pumpkins are cheap, you're not going to make much money. But you want lightweight, high value things, both in manufacturing and in agriculture, because you have to consider the cost factors. So flowers have a lot of potential. But even apart from exports, we have a relatively good flower industry here. You can distribute roses on a daily basis to the ones you love and the ones you care for. There are lots of workshops, seminars where there are decorations, the hotels. Each time we continue to build the hospitality industry, and it's a part of the uplifting atmosphere, and so flowers are used daily. We have to have funerals. I mean, all of us are not going to stay here forever. The funerals, and again, that's an occasion where people like to use live flowers. And if you have a lot of flowers, you can even use them in your offices. You can come and brighten your day, provided it's not too expensive. So yes, that is something we're not averse to. But you're right about farmers helping themselves. Freshwater fish. I didn't say anything at all about fish, because fish now is separated from agriculture. Ministry of Fishing and Marine Resources is under a different director. However, though, there's a system where aquaculture, where you have fishes in a pond and crops growing at the top. So if it's a system like that, it's a combination of fishing and agriculture. So then that is something that could be considered. And I think the CFB College is doing a kind of like pilot. Hydroponics kind of system like that. But we don't have a lot of people going into that. But it's an option, and it's something that persons could consider. Cattle caller, I have to make a correction here. I don't know how many people would have picked it up, but yes, you spoke about the cattle numbers going down, and they have gone down significantly. But they have gone down to a tick, a little, almost like a spider, right? Looks, they have 8 legs. It's a tick problem. It is not mad cow disease. Let's get that. It is not. In other words, we do not have mad cow disease.
Okay.
And it takes me back to the egg situation, where we said there are a lot of things that are out there that have decimated industries and that have caused a lot of costs, which we don't have. Mad cow is one of those things that we don't have. We never got it. It went into Europe, and a lot of cattle in England and different parts of Europe had to be slaughtered. Thank God we were always free of that. There's a little tick. It messes up the skin of the animals and the meat. You can't use it. The disease is called dermatophilosis, but it's caused by the amblyomma tick. It's not mad cow disease. But yes, the overall, we need to get our numbers back up, because you can do a lot with beef, and there's a fair amount of beef eaters. You did say about the unavailability of local pork. Right now we have a lot of local pork. That's one of the things. Yeah, man, we have an excess of local pork. Some of the pork, the pig farmers, they would be happy if they could call in and give their number and bring you maybe 100 pounds of pork.
And maybe they're listening and they'll call in and share that with us.
Yes. So if anyone who you know that needs local pork, please, I could commit myself to providing several hundred pounds of pork. The pork, if I could just digress a little, is one of the things too about our new initiatives, because in the recent times, government had put a lot of emphasis on the pork or the pig industry, to the point where we have a lot of the production is way up, but at the same time, you don't always control. You cannot control the external factors, and sometimes you don't know what is going to happen. We did it at a time when there was a lot of shortages of pork, and we really needed to fill that gap. And you always want local to fill the gap. Lo and behold, pork on the external market have become dirt cheap, very, very cheap, and so some of the importers are bringing in pork and selling it for as low as $4.50, real low. And our producers here are finding it difficult to sell pork for less than $8. Some have managed to come down to $6, but the average is about $7, $8. And so, I mean, most farmers, they've been trying. Government has been trying. That's one of the reasons that we've cut the cost of feed, pork feed to pigs and so on. But still, they say they're struggling to get the price down. So it's not as competitive as it could be, and therefore the sales are slower. We at the department, we are trying all kinds of things. We've had meetings with the importers. We've gone looking at the rules, the WTO rules and so on, and engaging the farmers, engaging all of the different stakeholders to see what we can. So there is a good supply of pork, but some mutton, you're correct, mutton is hard to get, sheep and goat is hard to get. There's not enough of those. It's far superior, the local is far superior to what we bring in from New Zealand and so on. Those meat from New Zealand, a large proportion is a lot of fat. So people prefer local, and they can't get enough of the local. Back to you, brother Carl. Yes, people have all these animals, especially sheep and goat, and they're not selling them. That is a part of the criteria but you're right, I didn't mention it, but that's one of the things we look at. The number of animals is not as important as you marketing them. If you have a guy who takes his animal to market or sells them to someone who markets animal, then he has a higher priority than somebody who's not selling the animals. It doesn't help us if you have all these animals and you are not butchering, you're not slaughtering them, you're not converting them to meat. Nobody can eat anything. Nobody eats a live sheep or goat, so it doesn't help. And unfortunately, there are a number of animal owners, even cattle. People maybe like to just sit down and watch these animals. And the painful part about it? Sometimes you can go to a guy, just like the example I mentioned, with 300 animals, and he can't find one to sell. And then you go back a couple of weeks after, and the dogs find some to eat. And so he's the worst off.
It's sad.
Yes. And yet they go over the same cycle, buying and selling. And so again, going forward, you don't want to register too many of these kind of people, because it's not helping. You're subsidizing the feed, you're giving them all this support, and then when it comes to market time, there is no result. Those kind of persons would receive a low priority. And the very first thing that Carl mentioned, cooperatives, groups in agriculture. Carl and all listeners and viewers, the government have been trying over and over. Listen, it's time for together heads. It's time for group work. No man is an island. You know, and Kitishans, it seems, we're not given too much of teamwork, too much of group work. A lot of persons have pointed out that when you look at us, we cannot find too many good examples of persons in business who team, you know, who are locals. We almost always have to point to the one good example in business over the years where two local persons stuck together and did business. It's either just a family business or a sole proprietorship. People love to go alone because they say that partnership is a leaky ship. That's one of the very bad cultural thoughts that we have. But we really need to group up. And safe to say, there's the cooperatives, right? We have the Department of Cooperatives, and they have been able to pull some farmers together in different cooperatives. Producer cooperatives, agro-processing cooperatives, beekeepers cooperative. On the books, we have a couple. I'm sure at least 8, maybe a lot more. But the issue is that they ought to be stronger. Some of them have been around long enough that we should have known about them. That, yes, Carl, some of the things that we're doing, the cooperatives should have been doing. But the cooperative movement, we continue to try. We continue to try and build them. But we need get that a little more in our culture. We need to get that a part of us, so that people will work together, people will team up. Because you're right, there's some things which are best done as a team, and there are many things in agriculture. I mean, tractor services and all these negotiations, the market, all those things that we spoke about, they are better done as a group than as an individual. So you're so right, caller, and we do hope that even with your input, that folks would try harder and put in more into the cooperative movement. So, Sister Macphail, that's well, Carl, he gave me a whole dossier, you know what I mean? And I tried to do justice to the 7 very pertinent things that he raised for us.
Now, Mr. James, you mentioned that marketing was one of the new initiatives. So tell us a little bit about what the department is doing to help farmers to market their produce.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. We have a marketing unit. True, the staff should be a lot bigger, especially that the demands keep coming to our marketing unit. More and more farmers are finding it convenient to have the department do their marketing. And I find that to be interesting. Based on my age, you'll have to maybe pull your calculator to come up with that large number. I recall that in the past, government had gone into controlling marketing, when we had SIMACO. And SIMACO eventually closed down. I guess there will be differences of opinion as to why SIMACO closed. But the general thing is that government had took on the role of marketing. And there was the view that government should not be involved in marketing, that it is best handled by the private sector, and that government should come out of that. And obviously they did. They sold the properties that they had. There was a building at Ponds, and there was one there in Central Street. They disposed of their assets and so on. Now, coming 20 years after, the new trend, the new desire is for government to largely be in charge of marketing. So it's back on the table again. So we don't have all of those kind of assets anymore, but we're trying to do the marketing from our end. So we have a group, and what they do, they go around, and if you have stuff, they will make the contacts with the buyers, and even sometimes we store them because we have storage facilities. But on the bigger picture, we are also trying to assist with external markets, because really and truly, sometimes there's an oversupply. Mark you, just that in itself is not a good way for an export. If export is something dedicated, export is something that must be planned specifically, because even when you're exporting, the people out there want food every day. You can't just feed them when you have a surplus. It's not, that industry is not going to be sustained. So really and truly, if you're talking export, you should be talking sustained production. But be it as it may, we are always trying to source external markets, hoping that we can really get our farmers intrigued, interested, and that they could buy into those on a regular basis. For example, government contracted some persons to do a market study for the nearby northern Caribbean. St. Martin and the BVI, those places, they were found to be very lucrative. Just like us, the number of consumers there far exceed the population. They are very high tourist-oriented countries, and so the market potential is very great. Some produce were identified that has very good potential. Sweet potato, I recall, is one, and I think some of the cucurbits as well. High value commodities for those markets. And so a market study was done indicating that if we do things right, given certain conditions, we can sell to St. Martin, we can sell to the BVI, and so on. Again, all of us have to do things. Sorry. Government has a role to play. The farmers have a role to play. And we've been, at our annual planning and review meeting, we brought in a lot of the farmers. As many, it was general invitation, and as many came, we spoke to them, and we spoke of the possibilities. What we really need to continue now is to sit down with these farmers who are interested, and we agree what government needs to do and what they need to do so that we can access those markets. It's not at all for government alone. If government even do their part and the farmers don't do their part, the market is still going to fail. And one of the critical things is sort of like group work again, because no one person is likely to supply those markets consistently. So as Carl was saying rightly, we need cooperation, we need cooperatives, we need close networking in order to be able to get it done. But I remain optimistic. We will continue to plug at it, sometimes harder than others, but each year, each era, there is seemingly small progress. We would love it to be greater, but we have to keep working.